Hey everyone, welcome back to the latest GoSkills Excel Challenge solution. How close did you get to solving it?
Hey guys, welcome back to another GoSkills Excel challenge. I'll walk you through my solution for this dynamic array challenge, where we had some fun tasks around the data from a fictional e-commerce company. So let's go to your solution tab and let's start with the first task. We have a drop down here where you can select any customer ID. And we need a single formula to pull back the complete order record for that customer's most recent order. So the function that I'll be using is XLOOKUP, and the reason I'm choosing XLOOKUP over something like VLOOKUP or index match is that XLOOKUP has a really handy argument called search mode, which lets you control the direction of the search. So instead of searching top to bottom, we can search bottom to top, which means you'll find the last matching order automatically. So let's do that. Let's start with the lookup value, which in this case is the drop-down cell. Now for lookup array, we'll try to search this customer ID on the customer ID column of the orders table and see that my data is formatted as a table, which I think makes it very handy when it comes to reading the arguments in a formula. Now for return array, we don't want to return a single value. We want to return all the entries for that specific order that we're looking for. So there's a trick for that. We are going to type the name of the table and we are going to open brackets and we're going to select this structure reference, which is hashtag data, which in this case will return all the entries for that specific order that we're looking for. Now we're going to go all the way until search mode. And I'm going to select -1 in this case. That's the key argument that tells Excel to search from the bottom up, so it finds the most recent order. And that's done. All records of that specific order in one go. We don't have net revenue and gross profit yet because we still need to calculate that, but it will populate once we have those values in. So moving on to task 2, here we need to calculate the net revenue for each order in the orders tab. And the formula for this is pretty straightforward. Net revenue equals quantity multiplied by retail price. The only thing is the retail price isn't in the orders tab, it lives in the products tab. So we need to pull it across using XLOOKUP. So let's go to the orders tab. We'll start with quantity, of course, and we'll multiply this by the retail price. So I'm gonna start using XLOOKUP. I will need to look up for the product ID, and I will need to do so in the product ID column of the product tab. And I want to return the retail price. For now, I don't need to use any of the other optional arguments in the formula. So I'll just close parentheses and that's done. So for task 3, we need to assign a loyalty discount tier, which is stated in this little table, to each customer based on their total net revenue across all orders. Now, this is actually a 2-step task. First, we need to calculate each customer's total net revenue, and then we can use that to assign the discount tier. So let's start with total net revenue. I'm going to use the SUMIF function for this one. We'll search for the customer ID on the customer ID column. So that will be our range. For criteria, we want to select the specific value that we're searching. So in this case, the individual customer ID. And we want to grab the net revenue for that specific customer. Now we'll pull this down and we have total net revenue for each of the customers. Okay, so now that we have the total revenue per customer, we can assign the discount tier. And for this, we will use XLOOKUP with approximate match. So let's open our brackets. The first argument is our lookup value, so the customer's total net revenue. The second argument is our lookup array. And instead of referencing a separate table, I will write the tier thresholds directly inside the formula using curly braces. These are called arrays. So those would be the minimum total revenues. So 0, 5,000, 10,000, 12,000, and 20,000. Now, the third argument is the return array. And we will also write that as an array in curly braces, which are the corresponding discount percentages. And I'm just going to write them as numbers because my discount column is already formatted as a percentage. So 0.1, 0.15, and 0.2. Perfect. And now we will go all the way down to match mode. And in this case, we're gonna select -1, exact match, or next larger item. This will tell XLOOKUP to find the largest threshold that is less than or equal to the lookup value. So for example, a customer with 11,000 in total revenue matches or will match the $10,000 threshold and gets a 10% discount. Now we will close our brackets and that's done. We got our discount already. Okay, so for task 4, we need to extract a comma-separated list of all the unique products each customer has ordered, and we want product names, not just product IDs. So I'll be using a few dynamic array functions for this, and I'll walk you through my formula from the inside out because at least for me, that's the easiest way to understand what's happening with these longer formulas. So the innermost function that I'll be using is filter. And what filter will do is it will pull all the product IDs in the orders table. And we'll use absolute references here. Just when we drag down our formula, it doesn't mess up. And we will include just the customer ID that matches the one in this cell here. I forgot to put the absolute references here as well. And we will close our brackets. So what filter at this point will return is the list of all the product IDs for that specific customer. Now, the thing is, we don't want just product IDs, we want product names, because for someone reading this data, that might be the easiest way to understand what's going on. So I will look for the product name using XLOOKUP. So the lookup value will correspond to the product ID. We want to search this product ID here on the product ID column of the products tab. And then we want to return, of course, the product name. So let's go again to our products tab. And yes, we will return the product name. So at this point, we will get the product name. Now, the thing is that a customer might have ordered the same product more than once, so we don't want duplicates. So we will wrap all this up in the unique function just to get unique product names. And finally, we want a comma-separated list. So for this one, we will use the text join function. The delimiter in this case would be a comma followed by a space. Of course, we want to ignore empty cells. And let's close our final brackets here. And perfect. Finally, task 5. So this is the really fun one. Task 5 has two parts. First, we need to add a gross profit column to the orders table. And then we use that to identify the top performing customer in each region. So let's start with the gross profit column. Now, gross profit is different from net revenue because it takes into account the cost of the product, and it also factors in the loyalty discount we assign to each customer in task 3. The formula for calculating gross profit is on the instructions tab. So let's go to our gross profit here. And I will use the let function. The reason I'm using let here is simple Because to calculate gross profit for each order, I need to look up 3 different pieces of information. So the retail price, the cost price, and the customer's loyalty discount. That means 3 XLOOKUP calls, and 2 of them use the same product ID. So without let, I'll be repeating myself, and the formula would get very hard to read. So how does let work? This is the structure that it follows. So you define a variable name, then its value, then another name, then its value, and so on. And the very last argument is the calculation you want to return. So in our case, that would be the gross profit formula. Okay, so let's go through it step by step. First, we define PID, which is just a short name for the product ID of this order row. And the value would be precisely that product ID. Then CID, which is just another short name for customer ID. This is the value that we will define. And finally, quantity, which corresponds to the quantity ordered. Now, these 3 are simple. We're just giving friendly names to values that are already in the table. Then we define retail. And this is where the first XLOOKUP comes in, because we want to search for the product ID on the product ID column of the products table, and we wanted to return its matching retail price. So that's the first XLOOKUP. And next is cost. This is the same idea. So let's go back to the orders tab. You can skip this. And we will define the cost variable. So in this case, we also want to look up for the respective cost price of this product ID. So we want to search for this on the product ID column again, but this time we want to return the cost. Perfect. Now, the final variable that we need for our formula of gross profit is DISC, which stands for the customer's loyalty discount. So again, we will use an XLOOKUP function. And in this case, we want to find the customer ID, which we labeled as SID for these purposes. And we want to look that up on this table that we had here on task number 3. So we'll select this range, apply absolute references, and we want the discount to be the return array. Perfect, and that's it. Now, the last part of the let function will be to add the gross profit formula that we defined. So because we already have all the variables, this should be very simple. So gross profit equals quantity multiplied by, let's open brackets, retail, multiplied by, open brackets again, 1 minus the discount, close brackets, and we will subtract the cost. Perfect. And then let's close brackets. So that's done. And for the second part, which is finding the top customer per region, we will also need to follow a few steps. So first, we need to add a total gross profit column here to our customer summary. And we will use SUMIF as we did on a previous task. So in this case, we want to look up the customer ID on the orders table here. We want it to match this individual customer ID. And of course, we want to sum up the gross profit for this particular customer. Perfect. Now we drag it down and we already have the total gross profit for each of our customers. Okay, so once we have that, we can find the top customer per region using a nested XLOOKUP with filter and max. So let's just start with filter, which is the innermost function. So what filter will do in this case, it will narrow down the total gross profit value. So let's select this range by absolute references to only the customers in the specified region. So we will need to select the customer region column here, and this will need to match the individual region cell here. Perfect. Now, this will give us a list of values, but we want the maximum value here. We want the top performing customer, right? So we will wrap this in a max function. And then this will give us the highest total gross profit value per region. But we actually want to know what's the customer, like what's the customer ID that's holding this total gross profit. So we will need to look that up. Let's wrap this in a lookup function. And we want to look this up on the total gross profit section. Again, absolute references. And we want to return the customer ID. Perfect. Now we have our top customer identified. If you want to go a little farther, we can do another X lookup just to find out which is the company name, if that's easier for someone to read. So we have the customer ID. This is the value that we are looking. We want to look it up on this customer ID column. And of course, we want to return the company name. Perfect. Let's track this down. And this is much easier to read. And this is the challenge, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And let me know if you came up with other ideas on perhaps how would you calculate the gross profit if it's not with the let function. I would be curious to know that. See you in our next challenge. Bye-bye.
So there it is. Did you get the same results? Did you use the same approach? Or did you try something different? We'd like to know. Share your take on the challenge in the comments below or join us for more discussion in our Slack channel. Link in the description. Thanks for participating and make sure to subscribe to this channel to get an alert when the next challenge is released. We'll see you then.